wreck avoidances,
Stay low. He's high, stay low.
daring passes,
Oh, you're gonna get it.
silly jumps,
Oh my god, a drive-through.
the thrill of victory,
They're against the wall. Good win, Mark. Stay low.
and the occasional mishap.
My sand crash.
This is the DMLC Racing Channel.
A new beginning with familiar faces. For the first time, Lionheart is going back to its roots. 18 races to determine who is the best and the most exciting form of auto racing on the planet. 200-mile-an-hour Indy cars, inches from disaster or glory. There can only be one inaugural champion, whose name will be etched into the Lionheart history books. Find out next. The Lionheart Speedway Series, presented by DMLC Racing Channel, starts now.
Races down, just 3 to go. The inaugural Lionheart Speedway Series presented by the DMLC Racing Channel campaign has featured so many plot twists it can cause someone's head to spin. With just a few weeks to go in the 2021 season, the championship fight remains ever tight. Matt Taylor, Barrett Rolfe, Alexis Newsom, Tony Showett, and Robert Malechka III all enter the final 35 days of the schedule, all looking to stake their claim for the driver's title. Now, with the final short track race of the season on the docket, the question remains the same. Who can break away from the pack? We're about to find out. This is the HyperX 175 at Richmond, at iRacing's virtual Richmond Raceway. Hello everyone, and welcome to RaceSpot TV and ESTV for coverage of the Lionheart Racing Series, powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperxgaming.com and don't forget to use the promo code LionHRT15 for 15% off orders. My name is Justin Prince. Alongside of the booth tonight is the setup guru for the Lionheart Racing Series, Andrew Kinsella, along with Arjuna Kankipani in the producer's seat. Cameras tonight are provided by the great Dougie Beard. You can follow along with live timing and scoring for this evening's action by going to racepot.tv/Indy to follow along with your favorite teams and drivers. With that, let's dive straight into our Sim Experience Countdown to Green, as now we're in the closing stages, Andrew, of the season. Just 3 races left to go, including tonight. The final short tracks on the docket. And now, if you want to win a title, you need to perform and cannot afford to make a mistake, especially with the Triple Crown double points race to end off the season.
This is such a critical juncture of the season, Justin. With the points as tight as we are, this race right here at Richmond could very well be one of the deciding factors in this championship. A short track race is always a knockdown, drag-out affair, and Richmond is one of the shortest tracks we have on the schedule, and it should be a very interesting challenge for all of these championship competitors here today. But looking ahead, we also have Kansas, which is a 1.5 miler, which you'll find will probably be much more of a draft fest, which can also throw a wild card in the mix. And then, of course, double points at Auto Club. That is almost guaranteed that our championship is going to go down to the finale. But right now, Richmond should be a very entertaining race tonight.
It's definitely going to be entertaining. It's going to be tricky. Qualifying is going to be critical. There's so much to talk about when it comes to Richmond. And the pressure's on for the drivers this evening, especially with the driver standings presented by the DMLC Racing Channel. Barrett Rolfe and Matt Taylor, with the drops included, enter tonight tied in the points. 614 points on the season. Alexis Newsom, Tony Shaw, and Robert Mleczko also within striking distance, but there is one major thing to note. One driver just came back from a certain open wheel event in Texas over the weekend. Robert Mleczko III, who did not have any drops to back himself up on, just landed just a few hours ago for this race and prior to this event.
Yeah, it's very touch and go whether Robert Mleczko will actually make it to this event, Justin, and if he doesn't, that could be his championship run done right there. But looking just a little bit further down, Joe Branch and Alexander Van de Sant, those two are just outside the realm of really fighting right now. But one mistake from some of the competitors in front and one good race here tonight from either of those two competitors, they could vault themselves right back into this fight and supplant Robert Mleczko as one of those top 5 contenders for this championship. But Barrett Rolfe, Matt Taylor, Alexis Newsom, and Tony Shawn, they've all got to be thinking, I can't make any mistakes here tonight. I can't afford to make my own mistakes, and I can't afford to get caught up in someone else's. So they've got to have a clean race here tonight.
There's so much pressure for them tonight. The same can be said, though, for the team standings presented by HyperX. Andrew, these have tightened up a lot as of the past couple rounds. Adrenaline Motorsports has led most of the season, but that gap is dwindling. Factory Backed is now within 100 points, with Team Race First Red close behind.
There's everything to play for in this team championship, Justin. Adrenaline Motorsports, don't forget, has lost Chris Stouffer for the remainder of the season. He will not be back here in the Speedway Series. So that means that Factory Back, Race First Red, and Race First Black, they have an opportunity, but Factory Back, of course, doesn't have Robert Mleczko in the field yet tonight. So that could be them down a driver as well. So that really opens up the door here for Race First, and this could turn into a very tight 3-way battle for the team championship.
That team battle is always so very intriguing to see, especially with some of the rising organizations this season. The rookie standings presented by Butt Kicker feature many of the similar driver standings competitors towards the top, but this rookie class has been very strong. Give a shout out, Andrew, to Alexis Newsom, 3rd in the overall and rookie standings. She has become the first driver to ever win the Lionheart IndyCar Series this past few days. So Newsom with a lot of momentum, as well as everyone else amongst that entire rookie standing grouping.
It's been an incredibly strong rookie class, and as you mentioned, Alexis Newsom has done just a fabulous job so far this year. She's really come into her own as a driver. She's had a few hiccups, a few races where it didn't quite go her way, but she's really picked herself back up, put herself back in this championship fight, and she is coming off a huge result in the IndyCar Series. Look for her to be strong here tonight.
Let's look once more at your rookie standings presented by Butt Kicker. We'll see how things play out for those drivers this evening. With that, it's time to look at your series details presented by Minus 273. Minus 273 is the premier name in karting gloves. Their industry-leading gloves are super lightweight and durable, made of breathable poly spandex. With your Ricardo Sim Racer, Minus 273 gives you the control to reach victory lane. For more information on Minus 273's full line of gloves and apparel, visit minus273.biz, and don't forget to also use minus 273 LHRS 15 for 15% off orders. For those tuning in for the first time with this series, this utilizes the Lara DW12, the prior chassis to the IR18, and this series, Andrew, features custom fixed setups built by you. How were those handled tonight?
This is going to be a tricky race for the competitors here tonight, Justin. There's a number of things that sort of work against the drivers with this car at a short track. The number one thing is that they have those pods out the back, and it creates this weird sort of center of gravity shift towards the rear of the car. So it's very difficult to get the rear to settle out of the corners. So in some cases you see if they put a little bit too much steering into the car to try to maybe combat some understeer through the middle of the corner, you could find them spinning on the exit of the corner. So it's really going to be in the driver's hands here tonight whether or not they will find themselves against the wall or in victory lane.
Those challenges are going to be so very critical to keep an eye on when it comes to this track, and keep in mind, for America's premier short track, this is the 3rd time in Lionheart history DW12 will be running at this track. Back in Season 1, for example, Andrew, it was Trevor Malone who led 68 laps, but did not come away with the victory. He's one of the drivers to keep an eye on. Daniel Roper, that's a very familiar name. In the stock car scene in iRacing, led a majority of the laps in Season 3 and dominated that time. Roper just so happens to be defending race winner. Most cautions in the past was in that Season 1 event, Andrew.
Yeah, I think that tonight, though, we probably won't see quite so many cautions here. Knock on wood, of course. Hopefully no commentator's curse on that one, but we do have a little bit of a smaller field, only 21 cars currently in the session here today, just because there are a number of drivers who did take this last week off on holidays. Notably, George Anzaldo is not here, as well as Robert Malechka has still not gotten back into the session, so it very much looks like he could miss this. So the upside of that, though, is that with a smaller field, there is less opportunity for those cautions that you mentioned, and it's very likely that it could get a little bit more spread out, and we could see a little bit more green flag running, which is great for us.
Keep in mind that George Anzaldo, we are hearing, is watching tonight's action from an airplane. So we're happy to have him watching along as these drivers zip their way around Richmond Raceway now. It's fairly cool in sim day, May 15, 2021. Temperature 74 degrees air temp. Fahrenheit 76 Fahrenheit is the track. That's 23 degrees Celsius, 24 degrees for the track temperature with partly cloudy skies. And as you see, some of the top times already coming in. These are lightning quick times we'll see tonight. 15 seconds the norm.
Yeah. The laps are just going to fly by if we can stay green here, as we see that Caleb Bensi has already taken that provisional pole position. But on your screen right now, Barrett Rolfe, this is such a key run for Barrett Rolfe. He's had so much problems in the past trying to get there, and again he's not able to put together a solid qualifying lap, and he finds himself way down in 8th, 3/10 off the leader's pace here today, Justin. So that's going to be very, very damaging for Barrett Rolfe, as it's going to be difficult to work his way up through this field.
That's been Rolfe's Achilles heel all season. While he's had great race pace, that qualifying tempo has been so critical. An average start of an 18.3. With Iowa, he started 16th, a very similar shape to this facility. Guyon, you've been following along with here, just moved up in front of him, in fact, to the board. Jeff Gion also shuffles them back a touch as well. So a majority of the field has set their time so far. Wants those turning them still. Joe Branch, who recorded a 15.7 in practice. That being said, Andrew, how much can you take from that Iowa race, which, of course, brought a lot of inspiration for its construction from the shape of Richmond?
I do think that there are definitely some aspects of the race at Iowa that these drivers can take, particularly on the strategy front, Justin. One of the things with a track this small and a lap this short is that you don't just go one lap down when you pit under green, you go 2 laps down. So fuel mileage is going to be very, very important for these drivers here today, and trying to stretch that fuel window and that stop as far as they can to make sure that they don't get caught out by a yellow flag. But at the same time, there's going to be a few drivers who are going to be very tempted to try to get a little bit of an undercut, because the tires will fall off as this run goes on. Off
could be absolutely critical. I've seen in some cars here at this racetrack off of at least about second. As you see Nick DeGroot, he's on his second lap. Currently a 16.2 to start off. DeGroot, keep in mind, has shown good qualifying speed throughout the campaign. Can he bump himself up the board here? A 15.9. That doesn't move him a single spot, in fact. AJ Musselman, Christopher Kresge, Tony Shalman, Alexis Newsom, the drivers who have not set times, and that's the interesting amongst them. The last of those drivers just mentioned, Newsom has not put in a time yet, Andrew.
Yeah, I think that Newsom is just waiting here to see exactly what she needs to do, and in fact, I believe she is just rolling out of pit road now.
Oh, she hit the wall.
Hit the wall here, so she has to reset really quickly here and try this again. This is going to be very, very important for Alexis Newsom. Some of her competitors have sort of mired themselves back in the pack. If she can put together a really solid qualifying lap right now, this is her opportunity, but she's got to hustle because she only has 30 seconds left in this session.
Andrew, She's not going to have enough time to get a second lap in, not even close. Just barely enough for one. And keep in mind, most of the drivers had picked up about half a second on their second qualifying runs. This could be costly for Newsom. We'll see what Newsom's able to record here as a result of that trouble off the pit lane. Newsom recovers to a 15.9, but that's only good enough for 15th because the qualifying session has come to a close. Oh boy, the championship ramifications are popping up again. These drivers are just about set to go racing here from Richmond. Let's take a look. Your starting grid. Your starting grid presented by Punt Kicker tonight with Caleb Bency on the pole once more. Team Race First Orange. Remember, he had quick speed at Iowa. Alexander Van de Sant starts in second with Trevor Malone, Luis Gonzalez Nunez, Matt Houston, and Samuel Ryman. What a qualifying run for him in sixth. Chris Fowler starts in seventh tonight with Jeff Gion in eighth. Matt Taylor starts in ninth with Craig Forsyth, rounding out the top 10. Alex Gouillon starts in 11th with Barrett Rolfe in the 12th position, 3/10 off the pole. One of the better starting spots for Barrett Rolfe this season with Vern Hawkins III 13th, Joe Branch in 14th, with Alexis Newsom in 15th after only getting one lap in. Despite 2 laps, teammate for Newsom, Nick DeGroot from Factory Backed, qualified 16th. Dean Mull starts in 17th with Dakota DeMade inside 18th position. The last drivers all did not set up times. AJ Musselman, Tony Schauman, who has an end of longest line penalty, will move 1 spot back and line up behind Christopher Kresge. 21 cars here tonight for the Lionheart Speedway Series presented by the DMLC Racing Channel. We'll see how these drivers fare out. This is the smallest recorded grid of the season. Majority of the drivers still making their way towards the starting grid here, Andrew. They'll have 2 pace laps to get their tires up to temperature. Your quick thoughts here for how things could play out from the action track.
Yeah, I've got 3 keys to this race here, Justin. I've got my first key to success here is timed aggression. It's going to be very difficult to pass, and people are going to have to pick their spots, because one of the things that can happen at a track like this is that if you pick the wrong spot, you could find yourself falling victim to the car behind you who can take advantage of it. So timed aggression is going to be very key. Keeping a close watch on that right foot. It's very tempting to stay in the gas as much as you can, but it can upset the car, particularly on the exit of 2. It's going to be very, very difficult to keep the car under them for the whole ride, so they're going to have to keep that right foot. And then finally, big picture racing. We got a number of drivers fighting for that championship at the back of the field. Who really need to keep in mind that big picture, stay out of trouble, and that is going to be the keys for this race.
It's time to take a look at your featured onboards for tonight's action. First, with the HyperX onboard camera, it's Nick DeGroot. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers, and HyperX is always ready to game. The second featured onboard camera is the -273 onboard. Alexander Van der Sant carries this one. -273, the premier name in karting gloves. Visit -273.biz. And Luis Gonzalez Nunez has the Midwest Simulations on board. Midwest Simulations, makers of the Spotlight visual spotter system. You watch the track, we'll watch the rest. We have plenty of onboard cameras as well, thanks to the cameras provided by Dougie Beer throughout your entire pack, as we get ready to go racing for 233 laps under the lights at Richmond Raceway. Drivers getting themselves all set to go for tonight's action here for the HyperX 175 at Richmond. Competition, commitment, excitement. This is Lionheart. And this is the start of the HyperX 175 at Richmond. We're underway from Richmond, Virginia. And a great launch for the pole sitter, Caleb Bency. Remember, Bency came away with a victory just a few rounds ago. He leads currently by about 3/10 of the stripe. Van der Sant pulling a decent gap as well over Trevor Malone and company.
Really nice clean start here, Justin. We've got a few drivers jumping to the outside. Jeff Seong Barrett Rolfe has already got up a few positions here, and he's up already into your top 10 in 9th position as we watch this battle between Rolfe, Xiong, and Forsyth behind him. They're too wide back in the field, but it is stringing out towards the front of this field with Bensi, as you mentioned, already out to now 0.5 of a second of a lead.
Keep in mind, Barrett Rolfe had horrific luck. In fact, a majority of the championship runners did at Iowa. He ended up finishing back in the 25th position, ended up being one of his current drops. Still looking at other drivers who are trying to move on forward, it's Newsome, who's now up to 14th position. This is now the battle pack for about 12th position. He's on board with Newsome, and you can see exactly what we're talking about in terms of the difficulty to pass, the amount of aero wash, but also the space to try and actually get the move done can be very difficult.
Yeah, these straightaways are very, very short, so you have to really time out your run, get it nailed exactly right, and it's very difficult to slip your nose underneath the car in front. So Newsome is going to have to be very, very patient here, even as she already starts to feel these laps ticking away. Alex Guyon is definitely one of the more difficult people on this in this series to pass, so she's going to have to be careful here and not commit too early and just look for that clean air. Try and get a nice clean pass here before too much longer.
Absolutely, especially if you remember the later stage of the run too at Iowa became attrition time, where the tire wear really started to impact many of the competitors. Still looking amongst this respective pack at the moment. Leading this respective group is Vern Hawkins III. Newsome, you see, finally builds up a run underneath the 08, but can't take advantage. Newsome loses ground. In fact, Dean Mull closes up a touch.
Yeah, that was a nice try from Newsome. She really did a good job closing up through 1 and 2, getting really close to the back of Guyon, but she just couldn't make it stick on the bottom there through 3 and 4, and that's going to be the story here is when you have that run, you're going to have to find a way to make that bottom work, as we see a nice battle here between Nick DeGroot and Joe Branch. Joe Branch also... Oh, and we have a spinner. It's Dean Mull.
Caution is out for the first time. Mull loses a rear wing, and that was getting to the next point, Andrew. That is the trouble spot at Richmond. Turn to exit with how close that safer barrier can catch you. You don't time it up right, you get that.
Yeah, the exit here is so difficult, Justin. Basically, you have this bottom side. You see that Mull got onto the apron just a little bit. It caused him to ride the car up towards the wall, and he just had to put in just that little bit too much steering on exit, and it just caused the rear end to go around, and he hit the inside wall. But one of the really tricky things here about that turn 2 exit is that the low side of the track is actually lower than the elevation of the backstretch, but the high groove is actually above it. So if you're in the high groove, you're actually going downwards out of the corner, whereas if you're in the low groove, you're coming up. So it's very difficult to have your car set up and working well in both, and if you suddenly switch between the two as a driver, you have to make a fairly big adjustment to how your car goes, and it can catch drivers out so easily, as we see some pit stops happening right now on pit road.
And for these drivers, that might be a smart call, because here's how the windows broke down estimated entering tonight. 74 to 75 laps on fuel, which were estimated to go around 74, 75, 148 to 150, 222, 225. You've already burned 13 laps off the board. Guess what? That cuts out that 222 to 225 window, essentially.
Absolutely. This is definitely one of those calls where you can't help but think that there's probably going to be more cautions in this race, but at the same time, especially if you're near the back of the field, now is the time to sort of try to work your strategy magic a little bit. So if you can get into this window right here, maybe you stay out on the next caution. So this is going to open up some really interesting strategy as this race develops, because I think that this is a really good move for some of these drivers. But at the same time, if you are at the front of the field, it's very hard to give up track position and come in at this point. So this is a very interesting move, and it's going to create some interesting strategy as we go forward.
One of the things we touched upon during the pre-race festivities for tonight was Robert Malechka III, who mentioned he was on a plane back home after seeing racing action for open-wheel cars for a very big event at Circuit of the Americas in Texas. Long story short, he's missed the start. He is not here tonight. He did not have any drops weeks to bank on since he missed the first couple rounds of the season. Take Robert Malechka to third, potentially out of the championship equation, pending a miracle, I guess, Andrew, now, unfortunately for him.
Yeah, basically, the only shot that Malechka has is he's got to win out at both Kansas and Auto Club. Fortunately, he does have those double points at Auto Club that he could potentially rely on. But at the same time, he's got a lot of people to go as we go back to green here, Justin.
Some of his championship rivals trying to take advantage here, back on her way. Keep in mind, 13th on back elected to pick Samuel Ryman is the first of the drivers who ended up pitting for tires. But look at some of the battles already. Barrett Rolfe wants to go 3 wide through turns 3 and 4. Luis Gonzalez Nunez on the high side. Fowler forced up to the middle. Rolfe is up to 4th now. Wow!
What a move from Barrett Rolfe there. He knew that he had to go at this restart because this is the best time to try and pass people, and boy did he go for it there. And that is the type of move that can potentially, since he pulled it off, win him this championship. But it was a very risky move, and it is a very good thing that he had Fowler and Nunez alongside and cooperating with him there, Justin.
Absolutely a big situation there. Speaking of potentially big situations, Jeff Gion had the checkup down the middle of the straightaway for this side-by-side. Newsom now tries to take advantage and nearly hit Gion in the left rear tire. That's allowed Guyon to get calmed down in single file. By the way, the fresh tire cars are coming in quickly. And guess who, Andrew? One of the few who found ways to make this track work and other tracks such as Iowa work that are tough to pass at. It's Matt Taylor.
Yeah, Matt Taylor is one of those drivers who you can never count out at a racetrack like this. He's got these sort of D-shaped short tracks really figured out, and you can see just how much he's taking advantage of those short tires, and he's pulling in on Newsom and Xiong in front of him. So it'll be interesting to see just how much of an advantage those tires are and whether or not he can start making some passes even further into this run. And Newsom, you can see in front, she knows that Matt Taylor is coming, and she needs to keep him behind him if she wants to keep her championship on track here. So she's all over the back of Jeff Xiong, going into turn 1 here, seeing if she can make the move stick here, going through 1 and 2, and it looks like she does make it stick here, Justin.
It's not clear yet, though. Just about this time, though, Jeff Xiong now gives up the ghost, and his white car now lines up behind. As Matt Taylor tries to peek to the outside now, Xiong can't get so through turn 2. Of note, Christopher Kresge has just pit under green here all of a sudden, and he's got a significant amount of side pod and wing damage. He had been running around the back of the pack amongst those who pit in 19th. He slammed the wall down the safer barrier on the turn 2, so the first driver significant damage in this race. Now back with Taylor, and you can see just how much Newsom's been able to run away here.
Yeah, there was a very close moment between Taylor and Xiong through 1 and 2 last time by. Taylor's a little bit further back this time through, but he is really pressing. He sees Newsom has gotten by Xiong, and he really needs to get back onto the tail end of Newsom because he knows that he's faster than Jeff here. He's got to be chomping at the bit to get through and get by, but you can see, Justin, that the tires are starting to just wear out just that little bit, and that tire advantage is starting to go away here. So maybe we're going to start seeing Taylor and some of these drivers looking for a little bit of clean air and maybe starting to take some alternate lines. Maybe the high line is going to start coming into effect here soon.
Well, to say, when some of the eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying series action events came to Richmond, some drivers actually found the top line useful, so there is grip up there, Andrew, as of some of the updates this year. It's been showcased. Absolutely.
There is grip to be had, but you've got to be one of the people who can really hang it out there. And as I mentioned before, that exit of turn 1 and 2 on the high side is so treacherous, so you got to be very careful as you go up there. To not catch yourself out with that corner exit, because it is very easy to get yourself just a little bit sideways off of 1 and 2. But so far so good on this run here, as we're starting to get a little bit more green flag running, a little bit more spread out. There is some battling back in the field, but At the front, Caleb Bensi, so far, he has been leading wire to wire in this thing, and he's doing a great job of keeping Van de Sant back in second place.
Remember, who won at Iowa in that 205-lap event? Caleb Bensi. And he did it on his own terms and ran strong all night long. Eventually went on to lead just the 10 laps, but he had the pace much of the evening. Here's how it looks on the track map, by the way, and you can see traffic is now about a third of the road up ahead. Many of the drivers are staying bunched up together. Compare this to, say, a 35-car pack. The traffic would be here by now, so this smaller count is helping in that regard, but it's going to be interesting what happens when everyone compresses together here.
Yeah, the people that the fewer car count is really helping right now are those drivers on older tires right now, Justin, especially the likes of Caleb Bensi and Alex Van de Sant at the front of this field. It's allowing them to just get that little bit more clean air, as we see that Alexis Newsom is now caught back up to Alex Guillon. You remember she was all over his back end before, and she is back again now, and she is really pressing as she actually just touches the yellow line through 1 and 2 there and loses just a little bit, but this is one of those places. It's a game of inches out there, Justin. The fastest way around for these cars is right on the bottom of this track, but it's so easy to get it just a little bit too low and touch that yellow line. And as we saw on that first caution, it's a one-way ticket to the wall when that happens.
Inside wall with the outside wall. That remains the question when you end up clipping that line absolutely in that situation. Newsom doing a very strong job through all of this. Of note, Christopher Kresge, the first DNF of the night, has now parked his machine after 34 seconds repairs, and having the damage still affecting his machine. There's 20 cars still running on track, 194 laps to go this time. The fall off so far, we talked about nearly half a second already, Andrew, and seen some of the drivers being affected by it to the point where some are having to lift hard through the corners now.
Yeah, this is one of those tracks where you sort of have to steer with your foot a little bit, as we see a big move here from the bottom with Alexis Newsom. She's going to try and make the bottom work through 3 and 4. I think that she needs to be a little bit more patient here, Justin. It looks like the move is much easier through 1 and 2, but it's easier to get the run out of 2 and try to make the move in 3 and 4, but it's harder to make the move stick. So I think that she might need to sort of swap the ends of the track a little bit here and try to make the move through 1 and 2. Yes, as I was saying, this is one of those tracks where you definitely have to use your feet to steer the car. Even brushing the brakes can slightly help the car rotate just a little bit through those corners, give you a little bit more steering, and it does wear out the tires a little bit more, but especially in a situation like this where she needs to make a move soon, she could be using both pedals here to do that.
You can see as well using that second line out to try and build up those runs. Newsom currently nearly 6 seconds now behind Caleb Bensi. Matt Houston, who is the head of this 1 second or so separation grouping between him, Hawkins third and company, has now lost the draft though to Chris Fowler. So Houston has now dropped back throughout all of this as well. There is one driver I want to touch upon, though, who pitted during the first caution, Andrew, from the top 6. Samuel Ryman, remember, qualified very strongly, his best starting position all season. Samuel Ryman's in 17th now after his decision.
Yeah, he had some trouble on that restart there, I think, Justin, and he just hasn't quite recovered yet. It's one of those drives. Sam is a driver who's very, very patient out there, as we all know, so I don't think that he's too afraid to just let the race come to him now at this point. Now that he's out of that top 5, he's going to be saving fuel in the back, and we know that he's probably going to try and be one of the longest cars on this next set of stops and try to extend this fuel stint as long as possible and maybe take advantage of a caution here. We've seen him do that in the past, and I suspect that he's sort of in that comfortable position to do that now as well.
Approaching now lap 15 quickly for some of these drivers. Now moving up to the next grouping. Barrett Rolfe has settled in here, but Luis Gonzalez Nunez. Chris Fowler, though, is providing a decent amount of pressure to that 14 machine. They're running 16.4s at the moment. On fresh rubber, they were running 16.1s to 16 flats.
Yeah, Fowler really wants to keep the pressure on Luis Gonzalez Nunez here. And I must say, another shout out to Luis Gonzalez Nunez. He's running a really good race here today. You recall he had that sort of breakthrough at Charlotte a few weeks ago, and I really think that he's sort of turned a page in his driving. He made a lot of mistakes early this year, but he's running a really strong race here in the top 5, Justin.
Luis Gonzalez Nunez has 8 DNFs this season, a majority of them coming in early. Charlotte, he was in contention for the win, led 2 laps that night. He also, remember, led at one point during Iowa before spinning from the race lead. So, despite the mistake at Iowa, the momentum and the confidence, it seems, in turn, has definitely looked like it's built up, Andrew, to where it's paid dividends in Speedway. He also raced very well at Chicagoland in the IndyCar Series last week.
Yeah, and momentum is really a thing in this type of racing. Once you start to realize what you need to do and figure things out, it really is a confidence boost, and you really do get a sense of momentum where things that were intimidating for you, things that were more difficult, they suddenly become less difficult. You're more confident with your inputs, you're more definitive, and it leads to better outcomes. And I think that's definitely one of the things that we're seeing with Luis Gonzalez Nunez. But up front here, Justin, we've got a 3-way battle as Van de Sant gets loose coming out of turn 2. We've got a 3-way battle now for the lead with Caleb Bensi, Alex Van de Sant, and now Trevor Malone also coming into the picture here within just about all within 1.2 seconds of the lead here.
Keep in mind, we'll look at those bubbles. That's DeMade and Musselman, who are about 10-15 car lengths up the road from the leaders. And when it comes to these types of racetracks, when you reach dirty air and have that aero wash, it opens up a lot of doors for the drivers who have been in that aero wash behind the leader who had been in clean air. So that may be a pivotal time here. Keep in mind that 97 has kept it close, Andrew, to remain half a second much of this run.
Yeah, Van de Sant's looking very strong. This is exactly the type of race that he needed to restart his championship hopes. He had fallen back just a little bit, and this is exactly what he needs. Of course, Barrett Rolfe, as your championship leader, is in 4th position, but Van de Sant is doing everything he possibly can here. And as you mentioned, this is the danger zone for Caleb Bensi. As you mentioned, he's been in that clean air, so he hasn't really experienced the aero wash like Van de Sant and like Malone has so far. So if ever you're going to misjudge something, it's right now for Caleb Bensi, as he's just starting to get the sniff right now. So this is the time for Alex Van de Sant to be doing exactly what he's doing and putting on that pressure and forcing Caleb Bensi to maybe take some risks that he doesn't want to take, as we see that time tick to under 0.4 of a second, now to 0.3 of a second.
That aero wash starting to factor in a little bit, it seems. We talked already a bit about Robert Muchka III not being able to make the start for tonight's race. After Steve Ward, he is watching tonight's action now, after his late flight, return from Texas. How has that fared out, though, with the point standings is going to be the big question with the drops factored in, because that is going to really shuffle things about, as talked about, with how things came in, with him not having the drops available for him with the missed starts. It's going to be very intriguing how it all plays out in turn for Malechka III now for those points, as that gap remains 0.3. The leader now is 7 car lengths behind DeMade. And keep in mind, that is a race first car that's in front of the race first leader.
It may be a race first car, but I don't know that there's very much that race first car can do, especially with Caleb Bensi being so far back right now. And you see that Van de Sant is closing up even further. He's right on the back of Caleb Bensi now, so this is sort of the worst case scenario for Caleb Bensi. There's nothing really that the cars in front can do to make it easier, and they don't want to go a lap down. But at the same time, Caleb Bensi really needs some cooperation from his teammate right now, as Malone gets very loose coming off of turn 2.
A little bit squirrely, the gap now to 0.2. Mentioned the points conversation. How bad is it now for Muchka III? He's not even in the top 5 of the drops factored in with live points at the moment. Van de Sant has jumped him. In fact, Rolf would be the leader if the position stayed the way they are. Taylor would be second. Newsom 5 points behind Taylor. Shawen has not been able to recover many positions after his EOL. Van de Sant doing what he needs to do to enter the championship conversation.
But keep in mind, Justin, we have 2 cars on that alternate strategy in Shawen and Taylor, and then we have 3 cars on the regular strategy with Rolf, Newsom, and Van de Sant. So it's going to be very intriguing to watch how those points change as this race unfolds, because it could very well be very different at the end of this fight.
There's the give and take given from the race first car. Domain now the first driver 1 lap down this race. Next car up is AJ Musselman. Van de Sant actually lost a little bit of time as a result of that traffic. And they are approaching the pit window too, Andrew. That's the critical part. They have to pit about 10-12 laps earlier than those who topped off after the early caution flag on lap 11. Luis Gonzalez-Nunez, just over the radio, has indicated he has to come in as well as a couple others, and that is 2 laps earlier than estimated.
Yeah, this is a little bit early for Luis Gonzalez-Nunez, but one thing that we haven't mentioned as well, Justin, is just how treacherous this pit-in is. It's a very, very sharp corner on both sides, as we see our leader Caleb Bensi also down on the pit road this time by. So this is big implications right now. Van de Sant needs to have some good, clean, fast laps here, and hope that it takes a couple of laps for Bensi's tires to come back in. But he's got Musselman right in front of him, so he's going to need Musselman to be a little bit more cooperative than he is right now if he's hoping to hop Caleb Bensi in these pit stops.
It's going to be intriguing how that all plays out. Bensi has just rolled his way into the pit boxes right now. Van de Sant is still staying out of the racetrack. Talked about the risk of pitting and losing several laps here with the quick lap times. Off and away go the drivers finishing their service. Barrett Rolf just rolled his way into the box as well. There is Caleb Bensi right there. Or is Bensi 2 laps down? He'll get a lap back now. Van de Sant has elected to pull into the pit lane. That will give the lead. Check that. To Alexis Newsom. Chris Fowler originally had the chance to do so, elected to come in this time too.
Yeah, that was exactly what Van de Sant was hoping not to have happen. Is he got held up a lot from AJ Musselman, and it's going to be very, very close between the two of them as they come out here. I think that Caleb Bensi probably will have it just because of how much Van de Sant did get held up. But Newsom, I like this strategy from Newsom. She's the only car left on track, and she's going as long as she possibly can, trying to bridge the gap to that other strategy just a little bit. And she's going to sort of limit the danger zone, so to speak, as we see a big move from Barrett Rolf, 3 wide once more on those fresh tires.
He's made it clear, if you're on freshies, you better watch out for the 33. Barrett Rolf has been trying to gain positions in bunches, and he has cycled in front of Bensi and right behind Alexander Van de Sant. He is now in the conversation for the point. The 97 is the current net leader. Remember, the rest of the drivers, though, can stretch it about another 5 to 8 laps. Matt Taylor is the current leader on the track. They can go as long as 10 if needed, potentially Andrew.
Yeah, what I failed to realize with the strategy was that Caleb Bensi came out right behind AJ Musselman, and Musselman did not want to let him by, and it cost Caleb Bensi big on his outlaps, and that's allowed Van de Sant to cycle to the front of this particular strategy. But Taylor right now, he's in the driver's seat, I think, a little bit here, Justin. He's really been able to stretch this out, and he's really in that zone of being able to make it on fuel from here. Craig Forsyth, I believe, is coming down pit road now. He is the first of those cars that pitted on that first caution. But Matt Taylor, he's doing a great job just putting in laps in some nice clean air. This is exactly what he needed to make this strategy work, just some nice clean air running.
Taylor executing this very well so far tonight. Right now, he's in the situation where if there's a caution, There's only 6 cars on the lead lap as well. DeMay is the last of them. We'll see when Taylor has to come on down. DeGroot, Shawan, Mall, Ryman are also on this strategy. The downside for the 82, keep in mind of this, he's 12 seconds back of Taylor. Taylor 8 spots up now from his starting position with this call. For the time being, he has also picked up the aero wash, keep in mind, from AJ Musselman's car.
Yeah, we have Taylor, DeGroot, and Shawan, and they're really the leaders on this strategy. Mull and Ryman have fallen back a bit, and DeMade is nearly 12 seconds back, and I believe he does have a little bit of damage. It's one of the reasons why he's been going so slow. As we actually just had a call, was that Matt Taylor for
believe so.
Pit lane there? Yes, so it should be this time by for Matt Taylor.
If not next time. No, it was Tony Shawan this time in the 31. Either way, the drivers who pit during the first caution are now having to come on down. Tony Shawan, quiet race for him so far tonight after some of the previous incidents in the past rounds so far this campaign.
And this is exactly the type of race that Tony Shawan needed. With that EOL, he was sort of behind the 8 ball. He's rolled a strategy dice just a little bit, and so far I think it's working out for him, Justin. He did make it to a point in time where he can make it on fuel from here, as we see both DeGroot and Taylor down on a pit road this time by.
That leaves one driver who also ducks in. They get no drivers on their strategy who had yet to pit. Samuel Ryman also on in with them. So the 97, Alexander Van de Sant, takes the race lead right here. He now leads once more from Richmond. He's got a decent gap right now by about 5-6 car lengths over Barrett Rolfe. Caleb Bensi lost significant amounts of time through all of that. Keep in mind as well, several drivers on that cycle could lose a lap here as a result of the timing of where they came out. Tony Shawan is the last car in the lead lap after his stall. This could put him in danger, Andrew.
He's definitely in danger, but fortunately for Shawan, he does have those fresher tires, so that may just be enough to hold off the charge of Alexander Van de Sant. As we see Newsom. I'm sorry, that was DeGroot. That was DeGroot. I'm sorry.
Spins around down the back straightaway. The caution flag is out. DeGroot, who just pit a couple laps ago, brings out the second caution flag, and that just saved a few cars, but just mixed up some of the others for strategy.
Yeah, he just got a little bit low through turns 1 and 2, and it's so easy to lose it, like we saw in that first caution with Dean Mull. He's battling here with Craig Forsyth. He just gets a little bit low, puts the right or the left side tires on that yellow line, and you see as soon as he does, the back end just comes around. He does a great job to keep it off the wall here, Justin, but unfortunately he does bring out that caution flag, and it does trap him a lap down. But the car that we mentioned before, Tony Shawan, is on the lead lap, and
look at this, Andrew. Look at this though.
All these cars coming down pit lane. This could actually just put Shawan and Taylor at the front of this field, or near the front of this field. But we have half the top 10 have stayed out. But Alex Van de Sant, crucially, he's thinking strategy-wise. He was not looking at being able to make it on fuel. Now he is. So he is cutting out a stop here in comparison to Barrett Rolfe. I really like this call from Alex Van de Sant. But it's going to be very difficult for the likes of Barrett Rolfe now to really combat this. He's going to have to save a lot of fuel, or else he's going to have to make up a lot of time on the track to account for the one less stop that everyone else is going to have to make here.
So amongst the drivers staying out here, Rolfe, Fowler, Hawkins III, Newsom, Taylor, who has some of the freshest tires in the field, Craig Forsyth, then Tony Shawan. Everybody else, 8th on back, has now had to come down to pit. They'll come to 137 to go this time by. Now I'm curious how this plays out for Taylor in particular, since he'll have decent track position for the restart, but also has fresher tires of about 20 laps than everyone else in front of him.
Yeah, he's got fresher tires than everyone else in front of him, and crucially, the cars behind him that did come down this time, they don't have that much fresher tires in comparison to him. So it's a 5-lap stint for Taylor and 7 laps for Shawan as opposed to 1 for Van de Sande and Bensi. So that shouldn't be a big enough gap that they really have a distinct tire advantage over the likes of Shawan and Taylor, but they will have a distinct advantage over the other 5 cars that stayed out here, Justin.
And as you touched upon too, and many of the drivers I think will point out to watching along tonight, that cuts out the pit stop. So that's such a critical portion of this too. By the way, more pit stops just take place this run. Samuel Ryman, Nick DeGroot have elected to come down a second time. They lost laps as part of that sequence. DeGroot, of course, via spin. Ryman from his position on the track. So 14 cars are on the lead lap. No wave arounds in position to get a lap back. But there is Dean Mull, though, in 15th, who is wedged between some of the leaders here.
Yeah, Dean Mull is definitely going to have... he's going to have to be very careful on this restart because he's going to have 3 or 4 very fast cars coming very quickly at him. But he's at the same time, he's going to want to try and get that position from Barrett Rolfe and get back onto the lead lap the hard way. It'll be very interesting to see just how much of a fight he puts up here versus these lead lap cars, and whether he presses the issue with Rolfe or whether he lets the 3 behind him go a little bit here, Justin.
So once again, it's Rolfe, Fowler, Hawkins the third, Newsom. The top 4 with Taylor in 5th position. Dean Mull is the second car in line, keep in mind though. That's the meeting the sandwich between Rolfe and Fowler for this restart. Let's take a listen. Green flag waves. Let's go racing once more from Richmond. The beautiful sights and sounds across Richmond Raceway as these engines burr their way around the action track. Looking at Vern Hawkins III. The 25 currently is holding on to 3rd position. Just around 1 second back now. Chris Fowler, give or take a couple tenths. Taylor has not been able to move up anywhere. In fact, just about everyone held up station position-wise outside of Tony Shawan.
Yeah, Shawan made a bold move to the inside, and he got past one of the lap cars. I believe that was Dakota DeMade there, and he is now right on the back of Craig Forsyth. But you look right here, Justin, in front of us we have Vern Hawkins and Alexis Newsom all over the back of his car, and right behind Alexis Newsom is Matt Taylor, and he is all over the back of Alexis Newsom. So this is exactly what we saw at the beginning of the race, where Newsom has to really make this move happen very soon. If not, Taylor is going to make a move on her. But the difference here, Justin, Taylor now has 20 lap fresher tires than Newsom does.
And we'll see how much of a benefit it ends up being now with the aero wash being part of this impact. But here's the thing too, Eric can save some gas here if he elects to ride on behind. But the tough part is Newsom's running middle, Taylor running bottom rather.
Yeah, not a lot of clean air there for Taylor, so I definitely agree that he's going to be saving some fuel, lifting a little bit early into these corners. He is on that comfortable strategy where he can make it from here, but he is on the shorter end of that. So he does want to try and lengthen this stint out as much as possible, and especially if he can't get a good run on Alexis Newsom here, that'll be exactly what he's doing.
Live points back up in the corner of your screen. They hold station here. Taylor would be within 15 of Barrett Rolfe. Newsom within 5 of Taylor. Tony Shawan would also still pick up a decent amount of points. Van de Sande, remember, is amongst those who pit during the previous caution flag as well. Those will likely be in flux throughout the night still with all the strategy calls. But it's going to be very curious how this plays out. Looking now, in fact, for the 97 machine. Van de Sande right behind Tony Shawan. Trying to peek on the middle line once more.
Yeah, this is such an important move here for Alex Van de Sant. He's got slightly fresher tires, only about 5 laps fresher than Tony Schowen, but he knows that this is one of the rivals that he has to get by in the championship hunt. So if he can get by Tony Schowen right here, right now, that will put himself much closer to Barrett Rolfe, to Matt Taylor, to Alexis Newsom, so he needs to go there.
I think an area we need to go back towards was Hawkins the third and Newsom. Remember, we were keeping an eye on them at the lead of this grouping. Both of them, they've nearly knocked the wall down 3 times in the past 5 laps.
And Newsom is pressing so hard, and Hawkins is trying to respond, and he is starting to get just a little bit of a gap on Newsom here. So it might be a little bit more comfortable, but he's having to take some very big risks in order to do that. And as a car that is simply running for the race win and not for the championship, he's probably more in a position to take those types of risks than Newsom is. If I were Newsom, I'd just be settling down just a little bit, trying to say, okay, I can't quite get him now. I need to be patient. I need to think of that big picture and just maximize my points here, because she is on that what is now the alternate strategy. So she's got to find a way to maybe make that fuel number work. She did manage to go longer than anyone else on that first stint. So she's got to be thinking, okay, I just got to settle in here, save more fuel, and just see if I can cut out the stop the old-fashioned way by lifting, coasting, and getting excellent fuel mileage.
The interesting thing to consider too is, for much of this run, Dean Mull had stayed second in the line of cars overall. Chris Fowler just now got let go by Dean Mull's 23 machine. Fowler is running 18s back. Go ahead.
It'll just be very interesting to see whether Fowler will start to cut into that gap. I do think that he is maybe a little bit faster than Rolfe at this stage. I'm seeing the gap go down just a little bit. He's about half a tenth to a tenth quicker a lap. So it'll be interesting to see if he can just use that draft to catch back up to Barrett Rolfe and really put some daylight in between himself and Vern Hawkins, and really start to stretch this out, and see if he can make the strategy work on the fast run rather than on the fuel run.
So keep an eye on Matt Taylor throughout all this as well. He continues to stay a decent distance behind Newsom, about half a second or so, in fact, behind the factory back machine. Craig Forsyth staying within good distance as well. Again, amongst the first drivers who pit during the caution still is Alexander Van de Sant, Caleb Bensi, Luis Gonzalez Nunez, 1, 2, 3 on that strategy cycle for the time being. So we have already just passed the halfway mark from Richmond Raceway. And your thoughts so far on how this is all played out tonight, Andrew, as we approach 2/3 of the way quickly?
It's been a fascinating race tonight, Justin. We have varying strategies here. We've gotten a little bit of a shuffled order on this latest strategy play. But the big thing here is that it's been a very clean race so far. These drivers have been doing a really good job keeping car on the track. There have been some moments that have been a little bit heart-raising. We've had some 3-wide action with Barrett Rolfe in particular, but it's been a fabulous race so far, I think.
Lots more to come. You're watching RaceSpot TV and ESTV for coverage of the Lionheart Racing Series. This is the HyperX 175 at Richmond Raceway. Stay tuned for more from Richmond, Virginia.
Wreck avoidances.
Stay low. Speed high, stay low.
Daring passes.
Oh, you're going to get it.
Silly jumps.
Oh my god, a drive-through.
The thrill of victory.
They're against the wall. Good win, Mark. Stay low.
And the occasional mishap.
My sim crashed.
This is the DMLC Racing Channel.
Welcome back to RaceSpot TV and ESTV for coverage of the Lionheart Speedway Series presented by the DMLC Racing Channel and the HyperX 175 at Richmond. Justin Prince, Andrew Kinsella with you with Arjuna Kankipati in the producer's seat using cameras provided by the great Dougie Beard. As just moments ago, Andrew, Alexander Van de Sant made a big mistake. He scraped the wall coming out of turn 4. He's lost several positions. Caleb Bensi, in particular, taking advantage of a major mistake from one of the championship hopefuls.
Huge mistake from Alex Van de Sant. He was having a really spirited battle that you saw in your side-by-side action between himself and Tony Schowen, and he went into turn 3 on one of the laps, just went a little bit too high, couldn't make the car turn on the exit, and he scraped the wall. It'll be very interesting to see whether he has damage that's going to affect him. He nearly lost another spot to Luis Gonzalez Nunez, but it seems like he's stabilized just a little bit. But we'll have to see in the long run whether he has just a little bit of damage on that right-hand side from that wall scrape, Justin.
And this race has plenty of implications for the championship as well as for who breaks into the win column. So far, just 2 caution flags, and it's Barrett Rolfe who leads the field, but he is on an alternate strategy. Kia Munn with several others elected not to pit during the previous caution flag. Right now, Rolfe is within about 10-15 laps of when he would have to come down to pit road to make it, to get some fuel, along with Chris Fowler and several more.
Yeah, and if he's only 15 laps away, 10-15 laps, he's not going to make it on one more stop. He's going to have to stop again. Whereas the likes of Tony Schowen, Matt Taylor, and Alex Van de Sant and Caleb Bensi, they all just have one more to go if we're doing our math here correctly in the booth, Justin. So without a caution coming very soon here for Barrett Rolfe, he's quickly approaching a time where his chances could be evaporating before our eyes as we see the first of the drivers to come down pit road is Vern Hawkins III, and that importantly releases both Alexis Newsom and Matt Taylor to go and try and chase down our leaders now.
Vern Hawkins III way out of the fuel window to make it on a one stop from this point by 20 laps, at 15-20 laps in fact. And that's something I've noticed too is for those who have been the lead car for a group for significant amounts of time, some have had to come in 2, 3, 4 laps earlier than that estimate.
Absolutely. Clean air is definitely something that's going to cause you to use a lot more fuel. Not only do you not have the air being broken in front of you, you're the one who's having to break the air for everyone behind you, but also you don't have to lift quite as much through the corners, which means that you can go faster through the corners, but it also means you're using more fuel and more engine power through the corners. So it's a significant difference, even at a track like this where you're going maybe a little bit slower than, say, Kansas. You still use a significant amount less fuel when you're in a pack versus when you're on your own.
Vern Hawkins III just about spun out off of turn 2 just now. He had been running at the bottom of the racetrack after peeling off the pit lane, Andrew, and that's a trouble spot too, is when you are coming off the pits, it's hard to find an opening here, and he rode the bottom the whole way around to the point where he nearly lost it there. Started checking up a little bit. Stayed side by side with Malone, but watch turn 2 exit.
Yeah, cold tires are so treacherous here, and one of the things is not only have you been out on old tires so you're used to the car not having as much grip, but you're also trying to find a spot so you're doing weird lines as you're coming through there, and it's just so easy to make a mistake like that. He's very lucky that he was able to save that. But looking back up front here, Justin, Fowler is starting to close back up on Barrett Rolfe, as we've seen a number of the trailing cars have done as these runs have gone on. But importantly enough, look at the top of your picture right there, Justin. Alexis Newsom has closed up to 2 seconds back as Barrett Rolfe is down on a pit lane. He also now for sure cannot make it on fuel.
And he is outside of the estimated window by 7 laps. That is huge for the complexion of this race. So Barrett Rolfe is in. Chris Fowler now leads. Now the eyeballs turn to Matt Taylor. Right now, he is on his 61st lap. Right now, he looks in a fairly comfortable position. It's just a matter of making sure he makes it for sure. And I know that's been a topic of discussion.
Absolutely, but if I'm Barrett Rolfe right here, Justin, what I'm going to do here is I'm not going to take a full fuel load because I know that I can't make it. Even with cautions, I can't make it. So he's gonna have to find a way to go as fast as he possibly can. So if I were Barrett Rolfe, I'd be taking maybe 9-10 gallons of fuel as opposed to a full 16. But the very interesting thing for me was Alexis Newsom. She was the one who was able to stretch further than anyone else on that first stint. She spent all of this stint in behind the car in front of her of Vern Hawkins. She's leading the race now. Will she be able to stretch this fuel just long enough to be in the window to make it, Justin?
It's going to be very close right now. Approaching lap 77 this time by. There is now about 79. Check that, 78 to go. Now at the stripe. So Newsom is just about there. No signal over the radio from Newsom. Newsom continues on going. Taylor's now up to second overall on the racetrack. Tony Schowen about 1.5 seconds or so back. You see the pit stop stint get on the side of your screen. Rolfe is currently in 16th position after his service. Right now, Rolfe is just 1 lap down, as Newsom has a bit of a bobble there.
So, but I think crucially here, Justin, Newsom can make it. She's gone 79 laps on this stint. There's only 77 laps to go. So she will have to save fuel on this stint, no question, but she can make it. I think she was very close to coming down last time, but she made it go just one more time around. I think she's probably very close on fuel here, but as long as she can get all the way down into her box, she might just have this race sewn up over Matt Taylor. As we've seen, it's very difficult to pass the leader, so that could have been a very key moment in the race for Alexis Newsom.
Newsom right on the money. Now, Newsom is in the pit lane. Taylor holds on to the lead for now. Caleb Bensi amongst those cars who has to let by some of the drivers on fresher tires there. That's Craig Forsyth passing on by. Don't forget Bensi led a majority of the way early on. He has still stayed in the conversation as well for a very solid run, depending on how things shake up here.
Bensi has driven a really solid race here today, Justin. He's really kept his nose clean. He was doing a great job out front, but he's also proven that back in the field, he knows how to be patient. He was able to take advantage of Alexander Van de Sant's mistake there, and he's put himself in a potential podium position here. It's just been a really strong showing overall from Caleb Bensi. And Van de Sant, despite that mistake earlier, he's still in a position to have a top 5 and potentially a really solid points day as well.
Here's the minus 273 on board. Bensi right now trying to run the second groove to try and build up a run behind Tony Schowen. Keep in mind, Bensi and Schowen, I've noticed as well, have picked up a little bit of time. In fact, Bensi ran a 16.6 to Schowen's 17.1 last time by. The 97, though, has to come on in. Van de Sant makes it 70 laps this stint with under 70 to go.
That was a little bit of a nervous pit entry there. Locked up the tires on pit in and nearly spun it around, but kept it all under control there. But you're right, Justin. Tony Schowen and Caleb Bensi, they are really closing up on Matt Taylor right now. But I do believe that Tony Schowen will be in next time by, according to the radio call here. So that is your second position runner. He's probably responding to Alex Van de Sant and making sure that he doesn't get an undercut here. So this is really the signal to start all of the last set of green flag pit stops. And assuming everything goes green through this round, this should be most of our contenders' final pit stops. But remember, we will have a few cars up front who will have to pit just one more time. Which
would be absolutely huge if this race does not get a yellow. Taylor Nunez amongst those signaling this time, as now Bensi will cycle to the lead. 97 trying to roll one forward after his respective service now. So Bensi and Gion are the only drivers along with Dakota DeMaid and Joe Branch, Nick DeGroot, Samuel Ryman, who have yet to come down once more throughout this cycle. Everybody else can either make it to the end or has to hope for a miracle. There's Taylor now in the Jacks.
And you just saw Alex Van de Sant had another phenomenal pit stop, Justin, and he made it out in front of Tony Schowen. So he's leapfrogged Tony Schowen in the pits. But we'll see if he's also able to get himself all the way back up to Matt Taylor here as they exit pit lane.
Taylor's off and away behind Van de Sant. Newsom is also in front of the 97. Looking at the totals, Barrett Rolfe is currently in the net lead position, just though by a couple tenths over Chris Fowler at the moment. Then it's Newsom, Van de Sant, and Craig Forsyth. Bensi, Gion have also just come down to the pit lane. That cycles Joe Branch for a rare time towards the front for the race lead, but just for now.
But crucially, Justin, Van de Sant is in front of Taylor, so that means for the net race lead, or at least net second place, if Newsom can in fact stretch it all the way to the flag, Matt Taylor is no longer the leader on that strategy. It is Alex Van de Sant. That was a mega cycle of pits for Alex Van de Sant. Assuming that he got all the fuel that he needed, he was able to leapfrog Matt Taylor, Tony Schowen, and Craig Forsyth all on that round of pit stop. So great job from Alex Van de Sant.
A great sequence for Van de Sant. Remember, Alexander Van de Sant was able to find his way to victory lane earlier this season. It was at Kentucky, stretching the fuel during essentially green flag to green flag race.
And this could be for the win here on,
and here we
on
go.
The screen.
Van de Sant dives to the inside of Newsom. Tries to battle for position side by side for the net position for the top spot of the strategy. Van de Sant gets the position in front of Newsom.
What a move from Alexander Van de Sant. He threw it in there into 1 and 2 the previous lap. They went side by side for almost an entire lap there, and Van de Sant on the little bit fresher tires and probably a little bit of fuel saving as well that Alexis Newsom has to do. Great job from Alex Van de Sant, and he is now in 3rd place overall and crucially 1st place on this strategy, Justin. What a turnaround from, we were talking not 40 laps ago, how he was in the wall coming off of 4, brushing the wall and made a mistake. Now he is in the catbird seat.
And to bring this comparison from Chicagoland in particular for the IndyCar series, one of the main things was if you didn't play defense strong enough, you left the inside open into turn 3, someone would jump on through and try and pass you. That time, Newsom gets passed by the 97. And now there's a bunch of lap traffic used as a buffer between Van de Sant and Newsom.
Yeah, Van de Sant is just carving his way through this field here, Justin. He's going through these lap cars like they're nothing, but I think Joe Branch, who's in front of him now, might be a little bit harder for him to pass because he's probably going to be thinking of his teammate Tony Schowen up there in 7th place. So he might be a little bit of a harder pass than the other lap down cars. But crucially, they are also closing up, as we're speaking, on the duo of Barrett Rolfe and Chris Fowler as well. So Van de Sant might not just win this on fuel strategy, he might also win this on speed as well by how fast he's going.
How about 2-3 tenths quicker than 1st and 2nd that time by. Coming up to 51 laps to go this time by. Joe Branch not backing down at all. Newsom has already dropped 1.7 seconds behind Alexander Van de Sant. 97 now trying to find some clean air and arc it off the corners. And Branch this time may get passed on by. In fact, he gives up the ghost. Branch lets by the 97.
Yeah, and nice respect there from Joe Branch letting him go by. Van de Sant's clearly got a very fast car into them. As for Newsom, I do think that right now she is in mega fuel saving mode. She did go 79 laps, but I do think a lot of that was because she was behind a car for most of that stint. Crucially now, Justin, she has her teammate Nick DeGroot in front of her, and I think that he is going to be trying to do everything that he can to help Alexa save the fuel that she needs to pull off maybe a podium here, if at all possible, and if she can defend from the likes of Matt Taylor and Tony Schowen behind her.
And keep in mind, teamwork has been so critical throughout the season. Wouldn't be a shock at all. Change for second position on the pylon. Van de Sant was let go by Chris Fowler. Van de Sant now is within 2 seconds of Barrett Rolfe in the overall race lead.
What an impressive run from Van de Sant. That was a great move. Not too much fighting from Chris Fowler. I think he sees just how fast Alex Van de Sant is right now, and he's just sort of let him go. But Van de Sant is turning in laps like no one else on this racetrack is right now, Justin. He's really turned up the wick and is carving into that gap to Barrett Rolfe here. So as these laps tick by, that strategy call from Barrett Rolfe and Chris Fowler is looking worse and worse, and I think that I think that this right now is Alex Van de Sant's race to lose.
All these drivers circulate around as Craig Forsyth comes under attack and tries to fight off Matt Taylor. Keep in mind, Forsyth is looking to keep up a solid stretch. 4th Chicagoland. That's where he finished. 5th at Pocono. 2nd at Charlotte. And now he holds off Caleb Bensi for now. He's in 6th position so far, Andrew. And again, he's amongst those cars who are in an interesting situation fuel-wise.
Yeah, really solid drive from Craig Forsyth. As we see, there was a little bit of a checkup with Dean Mull on the outside there and Tony Schowen. And Luis Gonzalez-Nunez takes advantage and makes it past both of them there. I don't think Tony Schowen will be very good. Oh, and let's actually go up front here, Justin, because Alex Van de Sant is there with the leader.
What in the world is this? The race first cars are all swarming him at the moment. Matt Houston just cost Barrett Rolfe several seconds here. Rolfe nearly spins to the inside. You talk about teamwork. I guess that's a way to do it and help Van de Sant close up 2 seconds as he goes for the race lead. Here's the minus 273 on board. Can't get the run quite yet to the bottom.
This is so close here, Justin. I think that the moment might have just passed just a little bit from Van de Sant, but Rolfe, you can see he's running just a little bit higher up the track, so it's really difficult for Van de Sant to get some clean air and really take advantage of the tires. Rolfe's running a really smart line here, and that is Matt Houston in front, sort of cutting the air for both of them right now. This is some really good action, though. Really tight racing, and Van de Sant, he's not going to be satisfied just with staying behind Rolfe here. He wants to win this race, not just on strategy, but on speed as well, I think.
Right now, Rolfe needs a caution, keep in mind. He is now approaching 47 laps into this stint. He can make it about another 30 or so laps, give or take at the very most. That's stretching it in some, math-wise. He is outside the range to make it to the end. Van de Sant is. The 97 wants to take the lead on pace. Rolfe continues to defend, and now Matt Houston is running away from the top 2. Also of note, Bensi has passed by Taylor for 5th position as well in the pack.
And that's interesting strategy from the 2 race first drivers, Justin, as that's going to cost Matt Taylor a position in the championship that I'm not sure that he can afford with the battle as tight as it is. But maybe the play here is just to maybe send Caleb Bensi up to pressure Alexis Newsom a little bit and see if they can disrupt Alexis's run here with a little bit more of a concentrated attack. Someone who can take a little bit more risks and then sort of let Matt Taylor back through in a bit. But this is a hornet's nest here. So we also have 3 lap cars in front of this battle here. So we have all sorts of action here as Newsom and Bensi are going side by side through almost every corner.
Keep an eye on how things line up here. If Bensi times this up right, DeGroot is the bottom car in this lap traffic side by side. Now Taylor wants his spot back, and now they hit each other. Hawkins the third, and DeGroot lifted off the ground a touch with some tire-to-tire contact. That allows Newsom to go on through. And that's what Alexis Newsom needed to get some breathing room, as Barrett Rolfe has had to concede the lead. He's pit. The 33 is in.
Oh my word, Justin. All of that action right in front of 3 out of your 5 championship contenders right now in this race. That is exactly what they don't want to see, is all of this action unfolding in front of them. Newsom is through, Bensi is through, and now Matt Taylor is coming through. Craig Forsyth, Luis Gonzalez-Nunez as well, and Tony Schowen is the last of the contenders. But Barrett Rolfe, as you mentioned, he's given up the ghost on this strategy, and he is now on pit lane. So all he can hope for now is to come back out, try and stay on at least a lead lap, or try to get himself back onto a lead lap position, and then have a caution come out, and maybe he's able to work some strategy here as they get very close. Craig Forsyth into the wall, off of 2, and he's into pit lane now, and that releases Tony Schowen.
He needed to come in for fuel when he misses the pit lane. So the commentator's curse strikes in a different way tonight. You give praise, everything falls apart just 20 or 30 laps later.
Yeah, Forsyth, he's just coming through turn 1 and 2 here. He needs to go, but he's pressing all he can, and he gets very close to the wall, very loose. Doesn't quite hit it, but then he comes down on the pit road, carries just a little bit too much speed, locks up his front tires, and he has a very quick decision he has to make, whether to go right or left. He chooses right, lives to fight another day, but he's lost all of his time, and that means that he no longer has a shot at this win or a top 5 finish here, Justin.
24 to go, and how has the strategy changed things? Oh boy, look at that differential. Taylor, Newsom, 1-2. Barrett Rolfe, who is tied for the lead entering tonight, would drop to 3rd if things hold stationary. Schowen and Van de Sant within the top 5. That separation within 50 points of each other still.
Everything is so close here, Justin. Everything still to play for. And I don't think that these positions are done changing yet. Matt Taylor still has Alexis Newsom in front of him. And Caleb Bensi is really pressuring her. So if Caleb can get around Newsom, if Taylor can get around Newsom, then you start to get a little bit more comfortable. But right now, 2 points between Taylor and Newsom as they run with 2 races after this one. Everything's still to play for on these points.
And don't forget, that does include the drops as well. So those do include the drops per the regulations for the Lionheart Speedway Series. Vern Hawkins, the third of note, has just had to come on down. He was able to go 69 laps on fuel. Bensi to the inside again and can't clear. Chris Fowler, by the way, the second place car, is the lead car for this entire pack. He's got a buffer with Joe Branch behind him, but right now, I'm not quite sure how you'd want to feel at this point, because they have been essentially driving like mad, to say the least.
Yeah, so Chris Fowler, what he's doing right now is he's just praying for a yellow. He's trying to stay out as long as he possibly can, see if a yellow comes out, and maybe he can salvage a top 10 finish out of this race. But at the same time, you look at what Alexis Newsom's doing. This is some really, really smart driving from her. She's staying right behind both Joe Branch and Chris Fowler, and she's saving as much fuel as she can, but because she's staying behind them and allowing them to run the low line, she's running the high line. Caleb Bensi simply has nowhere to go here, and he's unable to pass her. So the longer that Chris Fowler stays out, the longer that Joe Branch stays where he is, the better it is for Alexis Newsom in terms of her results in this race, Justin.
Trouble, Chris Fowler into the wall! Chris Fowler bobbles into the safer barrier!
Oh
Several
my!
cars start around as Fowler, who has to pit still, mind you, likely to get to the end, has damaged his car.
Yet another heart attack for Alexis Newsom. That happened right in front of her, and she was able to just get around Fowler on the backstretch. That's put Fowler back into 6th position. Newsom up into 2nd place here, with Caleb Bensi now right behind him. You see another victim of just hitting that yellow line. He gets loose and then just washes straight up into that outside wall this time. Fortunately for Fowler, he doesn't actually spin the car, but he will have some significant side pod damage from that.
A major scare for the entire pack, but we remain green. 12 to go this time.
Oh, Taylor!
And now there's trouble! Taylor spun around, he collects Chris Fowler! No caution yet, now it waves. With 12 laps to go, championship implications, one of the contenders spins out off of turn 2.
Oh my word, it is all kicked off here, Justin. And I don't think that Taylor got back going in time to save his lead lap position there as well. So that's huge championship implications. Newsom now will have exactly enough fuel to make it. Taylor is going to be a lap down. As we watch coming through turn 1, there's a little bit of miscommunication there with Luis Gonzalez Nunez. Gets into the back of Matt Taylor, and he just has he has some rear damage, loses the back end, and that's just one of those things where there is some netcode there, but there has to be a little bit more awareness, I think, from Luis Gonzalez Nunez of just who he's around and what point you are in the race. But at the same time, it's hard to blame him because he was doing everything he could to stay off of him, and Taylor did come down. So it's heartbreaking for Matt Taylor. This is going to have huge championship implications.
Absolutely big, because prior to that caution, remember, guess who was in the conversation for the top 2? Now that changes. You know what else just happened with this caution? How about mixed strategy calls for tires? Newsom stays out on 65 lap-old tires, Bensi on 54 this time, Nunez stays out despite the contact, Guyon stays out, Van de Sant hit, he's in 5th. He had a 7-second lead before the caution. As we look at the points with the drops, that is a major swing. Newsom goes from a 2-point differential to 18.
I'm not quite sure I like this call from Alex Van de Sant, but the one thing I will say is that because we are within 10 laps to go here, Justin, Alex Van de Sant will be able to pass all of the lapped cars. They will go to the back of the field, lead lap cars to the front. So he is actually in 4th place on our timing now, Justin. So he will have, I believe, 7 laps to pass Luis Gonzalez Nunez, Caleb Bensi, and Alexis Newsom. Tony Schowen is another one. Fresh tires for the 31 car. This could be big for him, as he was looking at maybe a 6th or a 7th place finish. All of a sudden, he's got a shot at the win here too.
Here's the problem with all this too, and this depends, keep in mind, on who elects to come on down before the one to go signal. With the current situation, Newsom and Bensi, along with Nunez, have a huge, and I mean huge, cushion. There are the following drivers between them: Samuel Ryman, Craig Forsyth, the Gruden Company. This will all get shuffled about here, Andrew, I believe, correct, though, with the under 10 to go. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, because it's under 10 to go, Alex Van de Sant will be able to pass all the lap down cars, and he is going to be right on the back of Luis Gonzalez Nunez.
Which is going to get interesting how this all plays out in turn. Is the fresh rubber going to be enough, though?
It's going to be dicey, and it's not necessarily a horrible call from Alexander Van de Sant, but it's a dicey call. He's putting all of his money on 00 and hoping that this comes up, because the one thing that he can't afford now is another caution.
So we are in a situation where it's a 6th lap shootout. We're just outside the point of no return. A quick caution flag off the jump could mean about a 1-lap shootout. A caution after that could end the race.
Yeah, but I think that 3 positions is a lot to ask for, even in the case of having a 1-lap shootout with fresh tires. I don't think it'll be possible. I think he needs it to stay green here, Justin.
Green flag's out. Alexis Newsom leads them to the stripe with 6 to go. Already battling on behind, Schowen and Malone scrapping hard for the 5th position. All while Van de Sande tries to figure out if his fresh rubber is enough to get around these cars. Nunez, a big checkup off the corner. And Nunez might have a problem here. Technical issues may be hampering things, and the 97's getting held up with it, coming to 4 to go.
Yeah, this is exactly what Van de Sande doesn't need. I think he should clear him off the corner here, and if he does, this is the move that he needs to make. He's got to go now. He's got to search and dig down deep and search down Caleb Bensi and Alexis Newsom. Meanwhile, Trevor Malone and Tony Schowen are trying to follow him through here, as Luis Gonzalez-Nunez's connection is really not doing well here. Schowen's got to find a way through here as well in order to keep his championship hopes alive as well.
New fastest lap, guess who? The 97, Alexander Van de Sande on the fresh rubber. 2 to go this time. He needs to find a way around 2 cars and pick up half a second. Bensi the first of them, and the caution is out, the race is over. Nunez has crashed, and Alexis Newsom will take the white flag this time by the curse for Luis Gonzalez-Nunez has struck again.
Yeah, just, I think, an unfortunate incident for Luis Gonzalez-Nunez. I think it was just a little bit of connection issues. Not sure where he is on the track. He gets in front of Schowen here, disappears, and then I think there might have been a little bit of contact, and then as he's spinning down in front of Schowen, even more contact. But I think it was just a case where his connection was bad, and Schowen just didn't know where he was in front of him. But overall, Justin, great win for Alexis Newsom. She did exactly what she needed to do. The strategy was right. She did everything right here today. Great race from her.
Alexis Newsom adds to her trophy case. She wins the HyperX 175 at Richmond Raceway in Richmond, Virginia. Alexis Newsom doing what she needed to do to try and put her claim on the championship fight. This is her 4th win of the season. And what a time for it to happen. Newsom had some rough periods throughout the past few months or so before bouncing back for the win at Charlotte. And now, it's back-to-back wins for the factory-back driver.
Yeah, absolutely incredible drive from Alexis Newsom. As I said, Justin, she did everything right. She saved enough fuel. She had the right strategy at the end, picked the right strategy. Also, great recovery drive from Alex Van de Sande. He had a much more adventurous race, as we saw, but he manages to pull off a 3rd, keep his championship hopes alive. Tony Schowen, another championship contender in 5th. But the big story here, Barrett Rolfe down in 10th place, Matt Taylor down in 12th place. That was not the races that either of them needed.
Points are definitely going to get shuffled up at the end of this night. Let's take a look at your unofficial race results presented by Car Knox, as Alexis Newsom wins the factory-back machine under caution at Richmond. Caleb Bensi followed up his victory at Iowa with the 2nd place at Richmond, with Alexander Van de Sande pitting from the lead during the final caution. Despite leading by 7 seconds prior to the caution, he recovers to 3rd. Trevor Malone finishes in 4th, with Tony Schowen in 5th position. A great recovery after an EOL penalty to start the night. Jeff Gion starts in 6th, with Alex Gouillon in 7th, Matt Houston in 8th. The last driver of the lead lap crashed to bring out the caution flag due to technical issues. Luis Gonzalez-Nunez, he finishes 9th. Barrett Rolfe rounds out the top 10 1 lap down, with Dean Mull in 11th. 1 lap down as well was Matt Taylor, who brought out that previous caution flag period that triggered the 6 lap shootout scenario. Craig Forsyth finished in 13 2 laps down, along with Samuel Ryman, what could have been for the 59 after being in 6th in the early going prior to pitting under cautions 1 of the race. Nick DeGroot finishes 15th, Joe Branch in 16th, Vern Hawkins III finishes 3 laps down. That's the last drivers to take the checker. Chris Fowler was involved in the big incident with championship implications. He finishes 18th, 10 laps down. Dakota DeMaine, it did not work out well for him. 65 laps down in 19th. AJ Musselman parked in 41 laps into his run before finishing in 20th position. The last driver to Start today's action was Christopher Kresge. Again, the smallest grid of the season so far in the history of this series, but in the end, it's Alexis Newsom who takes the checker here at Richmond. That brings us into our HyperX post-race show because the Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperxgaming.com, and don't forget to use the promo code LionHRT15 for 15% off orders. Drivers are in the midst of making their way into the infield to celebrate in HyperX victory lane. It was intense racing tonight. Let's put it that way, Andrew. Especially in the closing stages, the championship implications were huge coming in. They're huge coming out. Let's put it that way.
Absolutely, Justin, and no bigger implications than what Alexis Newsom managed to do. What a great race that we saw. That is the type of race that will win you championships, and she did exactly what she needed to do today. She didn't necessarily have the best strategy to start, but she adapted and she made it work, and she was in exactly the right spot in the right time. But I believe we are standing by here. You have Alex Van de Sant here, Justin.
And the first question I think on everyone's minds for Alexander Van de Sant after tonight is, you were leading entering the second last caution period, 12 to go. When the caution came out, you pit from the lead, several stay out. Why did you pit?
I was half a second off the pace from fresh tires. I knew I was able to put my car, it was kind of a lane and a half. I was able to put it anywhere within that band grip. So I'd be able to pass for the lead. I know there were 6 cars or so left on the lead lap, and lap cars would be sent to the back. So I thought my chances were good there. And honestly, in those situations, it's if you're the leader, if you stay out, everybody behind you pits, and if you pit, then everybody stays out. So it's just kind of a roll of the dice. So yeah, frustrating that the cautions at the end there were happened. They were probably preventable, but I'm happy with my pace. Very very disappointed about the result, but it was a good night when you're disappointed with third.
Talk us through your progression to the field tonight, because you started up towards the front, but strategy was a big part of the night, with several electing to pit early on. Talk us through how you were thinking from the cockpit, trying to plan things out this evening, especially with cautions waving when they did.
Yeah, I knew the windows were very fuzzy. Just the fuel burn was a little inconsistent, and with how long you can go, that makes it like it's like a window of like 3 or 4 laps where you may or may not be able to save that much. So I just kind of had to play it by ear. Honestly, when this middle caution came out with like 140 to go or so, I wasn't sure. Like I didn't know. I don't know why more people didn't pit with me. I had Caleb on the same strategy as me, but a lot of the people that had pit earlier stayed out. So I was regretting that instantly. We lost a lot of time to the leader, just stuck in the traffic. Got away with a wall strike. But then once they started cycling through, they were realizing, yeah, they're not going to have enough fuel to make it on one more stop, and we had just enough. So then I timed my last stop, the money stop, perfectly to undercut Caleb and Tony, and then just be able to go to the end from there. I knew Barrett would have to pit eventually. Chris was saving; he was probably going to be pretty short, so just worked out. I early on in that stint, it felt pretty bleak, but by the end, it was really feeling good.
A nice race for you, to say the very least, throughout the night. But keep this in mind, there is the positive now with all this, and with some of the drivers having various commitments, including various flights. You're now amongst the top 5, and you're now within the championship conversation with 2 races to go. Your approach with Kansas and the double points paying Triple Crown finale at Auto Club coming up.
Yeah, just gonna have to send it. I know. I guess. Yeah, I need to see the points situation. a win would have helped, and I really needed a win, I think, coming into this, and Alexis getting it tonight that's gonna hurt. It hurt my teammate Matt getting taken out too, but yeah, just gonna have to go for it and go for wins and try and finish off strong and have fun.
Congratulations on the run tonight.
Thank you.
Alexander Van de Sant came away with the third place run tonight. He led by as much as 7 seconds before the final caution flags. Caleb Bensi, though, was one of the drivers who benefited as a result of those cautions. He started on the pole, led a majority of the laps early, then the strategies mixed up where he was on the racetrack. Caleb, you bounced back to a second place run after leading 75 laps tonight. How are you feeling after knowing you were quick throughout the entire evening?
Honestly, just happy for it to result in a good finish. It wasn't looking so great there for a little bit, but yeah, I was definitely happy to get pole there. I thought I left a little bit out there still, so just happy to get that, and then from there just try to pace the field, and not having that experience in dirty air there in that first stint. It took me a while to get up to speed there later when everyone else was kind of up to speed. So yeah, strategy didn't work out as well as I wanted there, but was able to actually make some green flag passes for quite a few guys to work my way up there and just put myself in a decent position there on that last restart, and did the best I could to hold on to P2, trying to get Lexus, but it's just hard to get the person in clean air.
One of the things we talked about entering tonight was some of the parallels you can take from Iowa Speedway. How much did that, knowing how successful you were at the end of that race, play into how you drove at Richmond? What were the main differences and comparisons you can make from that race a couple rounds ago?
Yeah, it's a good point. Richmond, I feel like it's just everything's faster. You just have to be so much more precise. You know, Iowa, you have a little bit of leeway in which lane you pick and everything. I mean, you do here somewhat too, but I feel like here you're a little bit more on edge. You're really having to like work the car, put the car in the right spot where you're not gonna put it in a position where it wants to spin out. Because Iowa really doesn't have that too much. But yeah, here, I mean, just being precise. It's hard to stay focused for that many laps, and the laps go by that fast. Each corner comes so fast. There's a lot happening, so just trying to stay focused, hit my marks, you know, find different lanes that work here and there, and just try to stay clean. It was definitely a very treacherous track, and treacherous when trying to make moves around other cars. So putting yourself in a good position when it matters.
Now the next race on the campaign is Kansas. It's the final mile and a half of the season. Kansas always brings some interest to racing. Your approach for that race, for the Fish Motors Kansas 200, presented by Espo Designs?
Honestly, I've never really had a race at Kansas before, so I think yeah, I think it's a pretty well-suited mile and a half for Indy cars with the progressive banking though and stuff. So yeah, I mean, try to carry this momentum from Iowa, and had a good run going in Charlotte. It's a little bit of an incident, and obviously a good run here. So just try to keep that momentum going into the rest of the season, and I think Kansas is a good place for that.
It's first for everything. Good luck at Kansas in a couple weeks.
Yeah, thanks. Real quick, just want to thank Race First, obviously, Matt Hughes, for giving me this opportunity in the first place. Sunstart the Games, Fawn and Fanny, and I know my girlfriend and some family is watching, so just want to give them a quick shout out as well. So thanks to everyone.
That's Caleb Bensi coming away in second tonight, but it was Alexis Newsom who took the checkered flag. Let's join Alexis Newsom now from HyperX Victory Lane. Alexis, back-to-back victories in the Speedway Series, and this one coming just a few days after becoming the first female to win in the IndyCar Series. How are you feeling knowing how big this win is for you championship-wise?
Yeah, it's really huge. I was pretty close to the championship lead again, and coming out with the win here, even though it was pretty much luck, I messed up qualifying. Had to work strat to get up there, and but yeah, it feels pretty good.
What was it like trying to make sure you saved the fuel for tonight, to make sure you were able to try and stretch it to the end prior to those final couple cautions?
Oh, it was really difficult. Before that last caution, I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to stay in second because I was so close on fuel. So I was trying to run high and about 80% throttle. holding off people, and I probably wouldn't have finished second without that last caution. So that really saved me. And it feels kind of bad to get lucky like that, but you gotta take where you can get it.
Congratulations on the huge victory tonight, your 4th of the season.
Thanks, and thanks to all my sponsors, Factor Back and Big Blue and Cowboy Stuff and everybody. And you guys. Have a good night.
Good night to you too. That's Alexis Newsom, your winner tonight in the Speedway Series. Congratulations to her, and I'd like to thank Alexis Newsom, Caleb Benzie, Alexander Vindersen for taking the time to speak with us. And then there were 2. Kansas Auto Club are the final 2 races. They both take place in the month of November, Andrew. A 1.5 mile and a 2-miler to determine a champion.
We are done with short tracks for the year, Justin. Now it's foot to the floor, side-by-side action at Kansas and Auto Club. And these should be 2 extremely close races with everything still to play for in the championship. We had a lot of coming and going here at Richmond. It's going to be key for a lot of championship contenders to get good results here at this next race here at Kansas.
It's definitely going to be a pressure-packed championship potentially deciding event, if not potentially of who will be contenders for Auto Club. With that, we'd like to take the time to thank the sponsors for the Lionheart Racing Series. First, with the title sponsor for the Speedway Series, the DMLC Racing Channel. Looking for entertaining sim racing content? Look no further. Follow former Lionheart Retro Series Driver of the Year Mark Cohn's racing escapades as he battles for wins and avoids wrecks with cat-like reflexes, all while providing commentary sure to make you laugh, cry, or both. Follow along by subscribing to the DMLC Racing Channel on YouTube, like his Facebook page at the DMLC Racing Channel. The Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows for all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperxgaming.com, and don't forget to use the promo code LION, HRT15, for 15% off orders. The Sim Experience AccuForce Pro V2 is the premier professional simulation racing steering system. The key to its incredible realism is the groundbreaking direct drive motor control system, providing a driving experience that's second only to the real thing. For more information on the entire Sim Experience ecosystem, visit simexperience.com. For sim racers, the Butt Kicker Gamer 2 or Simulation Kit adds the missing driver-to-car connection. Bring more realism to your sessions. By accurately responding to in-game audio, you can feel the track like never before, providing increased vehicle handling and faster lap times. Are you ready for the most immersive experience in sim racing? For more information, visit thebuttkicker.com, and don't forget to use the promo code LION2021 for 20% off orders. Minus 273 is the premier name in karting gloves. Their industry-leading gloves are super lightweight and durable, made of breathable polyspandex. Whether you're a kart or sim racer, Minus 273 gives you the control to reach victory lane. For more information on Minus 273's full line of gloves and apparel, visit minus273.biz. Don't forget to also use the promo code Minus 273 LHRS15 for 15% off orders. And it's not just those 5 names, but so many more, as well as all the partners at the Lionheart Racing Series who help make things go smoothly. To learn more about them, visit LionheartRacingSeries.com. You can also find out more information on the 3 competitions that the Lionheart sanctioning body runs throughout the year. Lots more Lionheart competition is to come. To follow along with the action, be sure to keep up with Lionheart on social media at Lionheart Series. ESTV as well has your esports needs, while RaceSpot has your V Motorsports action covered. Be sure to follow along, whether on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and more. Be sure to also hit the YouTube subscribe button and notification bell for RaceSpot to keep up with the sim racing action we get to cover. The next time the Lionheart Racing Series hits the track for its Speedway Series competition, it's all the way in the month of November for the Fish Motors Kansas 200% by Espo Designs. That coverage starts 10:35 p.m. Eastern Time, 7:35 p.m. Eastern Time from iRacing's virtual Kansas Speedway. Before that mark, it will be the Retro Series, who goes across the pond for the first running of the Graphics Grand Prix of Silverstone, presented by SimSnap Photography. That takes place October 28th. Once again, 10:35 p.m. Eastern, 7:35 Pacific. With that, it's time to say goodbye. Once again, we'd like to thank you for tuning in for tonight's action. For Dougie Beard, Arjuna Kankipani, for Andrew Kinsella, I'm Justin Prince. Thank you for watching RaceSpot TV and ESTV's coverage of tonight's action. Congratulations to your race winner for the HyperX 175 at Richmond, Alexis Newsome. Enjoy the rest of your night.